Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm Keith Downey, your host, and today we welcome back another guest, Christopher Adams. He's the marketing director for young Catholic professionals in the D.C. area. He's also a Catholic singer-songwriter who not only creates his own music, but also produces. And fun fact, he's also worked with another few Morning Joy friends, Margaret Knapp and Christopher St. Clair. Good morning, and welcome back to the show, Christopher.
Good morning.
For those that are just tuning in now, our listeners out there, Morning Joy has been on a really great theme this morning. It's about peace, harmony, from Debbie Georgiani and Adam Bly talking about harmony in the home, to Alan Smith talking about blessed be the peacemakers. So it only made sense to have someone like yourself, Chris, who brings peace through music. And just like an interesting tidbit too, I'm sure many people know this, but music really can increase the release of like dopamine, serotonin, endorphins. But that also kind of relates to our church, with Gregorian chant. I think it's been scientifically proven to help lower blood pressure and reduce anxiety. So there's something to music. It's very important. So that said, Christopher, music does have that unique way of touching our souls. Can you share maybe a personal experience where a particular song or melody, something maybe you even wrote, brought you a sense of peace or consolation?
Yeah, that's a interesting question, and it's kind of you think, where do I start?
Yeah,
because there's so many examples of that. Speaking of Gregorian chant, right? I mean, that's something. Yeah, of course. Yeah, the dopamine release is great. And it's one of the earliest, Gregorian chant is one of the earliest, probably examples of people finding peace in music or utilizing music to pray, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually a good example. But I will definitely turn on Gregorian chant or Eastern chant, some kind of like Greek or Russian Orthodox or, Catholic music if I need something soothing in the background, something prayerful. But when it comes to a particular song, I would say I have to reach back to my Protestant years, back to someone who, by the way, you probably know this, but did not stay Protestant, Rich Mullins. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he wrote a song called "Hold Me, Jesus," and it's one of those songs that, at various points in my life, I've definitely turned on or listened to find peace. I remember when I first moved to Russia in 2007. I remember just being alone there. I didn't know anybody. It was cold, alone, and it was dark actually. And I turned that song on, and the lyrics are just pretty impactful too. One of the lyrics that I really like, if I can pull up, and wake me up in the night when it feels so dark, it's so hot inside my soul, I swear there must be blisters on my heart. And he goes back to hold me, Jesus, because I'm shaking like a leaf. Very simple, but very impactful.
Yeah, those lyrics, wow, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something I really want to touch on. So you listened to, obviously, Gregorian chant, but also kind of the Eastern chant. What is the difference between Gregorian chant and, say, something from the Eastern Church chants?
Yeah. So Gregorian chant is awesome. It's, what is it, monophonic, right? So it's only one melody, I think, originally. Yeah. Gregorian chant tends to use, sometimes they use an ison, which is like the bottom bass resonating. You'll hear that kind of bass sound underneath the tone, right? The Eastern chant uses that vocally called the ison, which actually comes from Italy. But the Eastern chant uses that really a lot. And that brings a certain mystical feel to the music. It kind of resonates throughout the church if you're listening to it, or your headphones if you're listening to it. And I think that you're talking about the biology behind it, right? The science. Mm-hmm. I guess it's the resonation, something like that makes you feel transcendent in a way. And Byzantine and Russian chant, obviously the harmonies, the vocals, amazing, right? Yeah. And so that's transcendent.
Transcendent's a good way to put it. Since you are a songwriter, how do you intentionally infuse peace into your music? Is there any like specific themes, lyrics
Yeah.
that you find particularly soothing?
Um, let's see. I mean, yeah, generally, I would say I try to communicate an atmosphere
Mm.
um, when it comes to my music. I mean, obviously, lyrically, that's going to be important. I mean, if I'm saying something that's lyrically disjointed from piece, then obviously that's going to be bad. But I try to communicate an
Yeah.
atmosphere through the sound of the music, through the general vibe, and that's kind of something hard to explain when you're talking about it. But
Right.
I try to, yeah, obviously use themes that will convey peace. Certain the words that you use are important, the structure. Um, you're
Yeah.
asking if there was a certain like harmony that I'll use.
Yeah.
Um, it goes back to what we were talking about with the Gregorian and the Byzantine chant. If I
Hmm.
can make people feel like there is get a portion of that feeling you get when you walk into a church and there's dim lights and the incense going,
Mm.
then I've done my job. As a
Wow.
musician, kind of like presenting the mystery, asking a question: Is there more?
Huh.
Right.
Wow.
So if my music does that, I feel good about it.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah, sometimes we use music to energize ourselves or to process negative emotions. It may not
Yeah.
always be considered, quote unquote, peaceful, but it can reflect that
Right.
after potentially listening to something. So it's very
Yeah,
interesting.
definitely.
Now, I guess a question, what would you say, in your opinion, what makes a song universally peaceful? Any elements, or at least musical elements, that you have found that kind of touch the human spirit?
So things that relate uh, to where people are. I mean, just
Hmm.
like Christ came down and met us where we are, the music is going to do this, needs to do the same thing if it's going to be
Hmm.
relatable.
Yeah.
And things that will, just like in life, you need a structure, right?
Hmm.
Music sort of provides that structure for you to kind of, I guess, executively check out in some way.
Yeah.
And
Huh.
so it guides you along and soothes you in the sense that you can give it all up. And you're either going to be submitting executively to something positive, or you're going to be executively submitting to being guided by something negative. And
Mm.
so that piece is going to come from Christ via a good structure founded in, I guess, positive lyrics,
Hmm.
spiritual lyrics, stuff like that.
Yeah, one song that just keeps popping in my head. It has no, I mean, it's more cinematic than anything. There's no lyrics or anything, but Howard Shore's music and from the Lord of the Rings, especially
Definitely.
concerning hobbits, which is the title of one of the tracks, where it just like there's it's like the calmest, peaceful. That's kind of like if I
Right.
want to get away and just kind of I don't know, like if non-liturgically, obviously. But yeah, it's just something to it that does have the ability to bring up visuals like that. I don't know. It's very interesting stuff. Music.
Yeah, I would say, I know definitely the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. Obviously, if I'm trying to relax or chill, I put
Yeah.
on, Spotify, Lord of the Rings, chill, something like that, because you don't want like the siege of, I don't know, Gondor playing when you're being soothed. But then also like soundtracks, like video game soundtracks or movie
Yeah.
soundtracks in general, if it's a good score, Hans Zimmer, stuff like that can be very transcendent.
Transcendence, a really good way to put it. And even, your work with Margaret Knapp, ethereal, would be a
Oh
good
yeah.
way to put it. That can also bring some of a sense of peace. And speaking kind of your work, is there anything upcoming, any singles or perhaps an album in the works?
Yeah, so I produce music with Christopher St. Clair, and it's his production studio, St. Clair Records, right? And so I'm going to be releasing probably a single, maybe an EP, at some
Wow.
point this winter coming up. Um, yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that because it's a totally different genre from what I've recorded before. So it's going to
Oh,
be a totally
interesting.
new animal. Hmm.
Can you share with us what genre that you're going to be working on?
Yeah, it's more of a ballad sort of
Mm.
based thing. So It's a little bit more acoustic. It's a little bit more, yeah, in that trajectory as opposed to more poppy. Now, there's probably going to be other ones coming that will be poppy, but this one,
Sure.
more ballad-like. Mm-hmm.
So obviously on Instagram, we can find you at Mr.AdamsDC, Mr.AdamsDC. Where else can we find more about your music and your work?
Yeah. So my other, I guess, it's really Instagram based, actually, a lot of my stuff. But it'll be coming out on Spotify. It will be across all the different, music sources. But my other, I guess, Insta is Christopher J. Adams. So that's my music one. It's more of my music Instagram profile. But it's my music will be released across platforms.
Very cool. Well, I can't thank you enough, Christopher, for joining us this morning, sharing us kind of, the music process and how peaceful it can be for ourselves, continuing that conversation of peace. But thank you so much, Christopher, for joining us. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more truth and joy. God bless, and make it a joyful day.